Okay, so next we have joining us online are our partners in today's event, the ADLD Center. The ADLD Center is a nonprofit organization dedicated to finding a cure for ADLD, an ultra-rare genetic disorder. Bishan Singh co-leads the ADLD Center's Scientific and Medical Advisory Board. In his role, Bishan focuses on building partnerships with researchers and clinicians to advance a collective understanding of how ADLD works to discover a way to stop it from impacting more patients and families. Outside of the ADLD Center, Bishan focuses on leveraging innovative technologies such as generative AI to unlock the potential of scientific and clinical data, particularly in the context of integrating multimodal data to improve patient outcomes. He has held various roles at Microsoft, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the NIH, and Georgetown University. He has co-authored several peer-reviewed papers and has several patents. Welcome, Bishan, online today.
So just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today and to our partners at the Mayo Clinic for co-organizing today's symposium. Coming from a family affected by ADLD, I know I can say to all of the renowned and accomplished researchers and clinicians here today and studying the disease around the world that we're in your debt for your amazing work. So thank you for that. And your presentations today have been incredibly inspiring. So as Radhika mentioned, I'm here on behalf of the ADLD Center, which is a patient advocacy group based here in the USA, but present in support of ADLD patients all over the world. So over the next few minutes, I'd like to share with you a quick overview of the ADLD Center, what we're focusing on in terms of paths towards a treatment or cure for the disease, and then some updates on ongoing partnerships that we're grateful to have with researchers and physicians. I unfortunately wasn't able to attend today's meeting in person due to a last-minute constraint, but my colleague and relative, Dr. Gurdesh Bedi, is in the room today, and he and I would be more than happy to take questions or otherwise discuss our work anytime. So about 5 years ago, after seeing generations of our family members affected by ADLD, a few relatives got together to ask, what can we do to bring an end to the disease? So that conversation led us on a journey of discovering a variety of other patient advocacy groups who are ahead of us, communities, many more ADLD patients outside of our family, ADLD researchers and physicians, including many of you here today and beyond. Building on what we learned through that journey, we started a nonprofit organization, and we're now engaging with patients in Uruguay, here in the USA, India, Brazil, and other countries. And we're also partnering with as many ADLD researchers as possible. As a result, we now know a lot more about the disease, how to manage it, and what kinds of efforts can help us bring an end to it. So we currently have 3 areas of focus. First and foremost, we're a resource for patients and caregivers. We've connected with a variety of patients and caregivers living in different countries and are developing resources such as a patient handbook with information around symptom management, best practices, getting tested, planning to have a child, and beyond. Our hope is that we can help as many ADLD patients as possible learn that they're not alone and there's hope ahead. We're also focusing on expanding our research network with scientists and clinicians around the world. And I want to extend a big thank you to those of you here today who have already taken the time to connect with us and support our efforts. And then lastly, we're focusing on strategy and fundraising to make sure we're taking advantage of all the opportunities and resources available to us to make as much of a positive impact as possible on the lives of ADLD patients and their caregivers. So here are a few updates I wanted to share. So the first is on grant progress. So a little over a year ago, we awarded 3 pilot grants, one to Dr. Quasar Padiath at the University of Pittsburgh, another to Dr. Stefano Ratti at the University of Bologna, and another to Dr. Margot Cousin at the Mayo Clinic. Collectively, they're increasing our understanding of how ADLD works, how we can track its progression over time, and what it'll take for us to prepare for a clinical trial as we make progress towards identifying a treatment or a cure for ADLD. We're very grateful for their efforts and for sharing their findings with us, and their efforts will roughly continue over the next 6 months to 1 year. Since we already heard from them directly on their latest findings and what's ahead, I'll keep moving. Drug repurposing. So around a year and a half ago, a patient family approached us about the potential to figure out whether currently existing medicines that are already FDA approved could be repurposed for ADLD. So to build upon existing work and try to learn more, we partnered with a contract research organization called Transcripta Bio, which does exactly that as a service. They created a model of ADLD in cell cultures and tested every single FDA-approved drug on them to see which drugs were able to reduce levels of lamin B1, which we know is a protein implicated in ADLD. This led them to identify a handful of candidates that were now undergoing further testing with, so we can get a sense of the right dosage, risk, safety, etc. We'll have more updates about them and this effort towards the end of this year as we learn more about the benefits and risks of each of these drug candidates. Following up on what Margot mentioned this morning, we're very excited to be beginning a natural history study for ADLD. For any patients and families listening, we'll need as much of your participation in the study as possible. Initially, participation will begin by simply sharing your medical records, which your physicians can usually help with behind the scenes. And then later, we'll have a set of tests and checks for you to do on an every few months basis to help us understand the natural progression of the disease, just as Holly mentioned a minute or two ago. This is important because when we have a treatment for ADLD in the future, the FDA is going to ask us how we know the treatment is making a difference in disease progression. Typically, to figure this out, they'd require us to create two groups of patients, one group that gets the treatment and then one group that doesn't. And the problem with this is that we want all patients to be able to get the treatment as quickly as possible, as opposed to one after the other. And so basically a successful natural history study can be the key to us not having to have these two groups of patients. Instead, the study itself can replace the group that doesn't get the treatment, and then all patients that can get the treatment at the same time. So please stay tuned for updates on this later this year. We'll reach out to you by email and we'll have some updates on our website as well. So fundraising, over the past few months, we've been fortunate to raise $120,000, for which we're very grateful. Having said that, we're $200,000 short of our goal to fully launch the natural history study next spring. Our aim is to raise $320,000 in total over the next few months and use this money through 2025. We have three main buckets where we'll deploy these funds. The biggest at $250,000, let me see if the slide can change here. Yes, is for research and clinical support. And $200,000 from this amount is specifically dedicated towards the natural history study itself. And then the remainder will go towards identifying drug candidates, other therapies, providing nursing support, genetic testing, things like that. Then we'd like to get in front of as many ADLD patients as possible. As many clinicians mentioned earlier today, this disease is likely very underdiagnosed. So there's probably a lot of patients out there who we haven't yet come in contact with, who we can come into contact with. So we're allocating $35,000 towards marketing, resource development, facilitating conferences, things like that. And then the remaining $35,000 is for administrative expenses like legal support, accounting, etc. So having said that, we have the support of a generous donor who has offered to match up to $40,000 if we reach this goal of $320,000. So we're going to be pushing very hard and then hopefully get to a total of $400K stretch goal. So that covers everything I wanted to share. I'd like to say thank you again to our researcher and clinician partners for their amazing work, to ADLD patients and families for being connected with us and allowing us to be a part of their journey, and to generous donors for helping us all make progress towards a cure. Please visit our website, adld.center, for updates and to subscribe to our email list if you haven't already, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Bishop. That's wonderful. I was just wondering, are there other ADLD advocacy groups internationally? And when you're looking for funding, there are some funding agencies now that either require or request collaboration between researchers and patient advocacy groups for the funding applications. Have you identified any of those?
Yes, thanks. Great question. So there is one other patient advocacy group with which we're in contact in Italy, serving only Italian patients. So we have a relationship with them and we're in touch. And the second part of your question about funding opportunities that require collaboration between patient advocacy groups and researchers. We have applied for some of these opportunities. We are aware of them coming out from, let's say, the National Institutes of Health or other federal agencies like the FDA, and that continues to be an interesting avenue for us to pursue as it relates to getting as much funding as we can to, find an end to this disease.
All right, thank you, Bishan.